Out of all the trends of the world, we're here with the one surrounding the movie that never happened, The Amazing Spider-Man 3, and the desire for it all of the fans around the world have. The continuation of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, the Easter egg that never happened, but also Marvel's plan that came scarily close to making Andrew's Spider-Man canon way back, and we not having Tom Holland in the first place. Recap. Not only was Spider-Man No Way Home probably the biggest movie out of all in 2021, but it also brought up another exciting news that came on the positive side of things for the fans around the world. The matter we're talking about right now is that after the latest Spider-Man movie from Marvel Studios came out, an entirely new trend popping up on Twitter, and it's all about the desire for the movie that never happened, The Amazing Spider-Man 3 with Andrew Garfield in the lead role. The first big screen adaptation came in 2002 with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, which saw Tobey Maguire portraying the titular character, and that was before Sony decided to reboot the character as their own in the form of Marc Webb's story with The Amazing Spider-Man, which spanned over 2 installments, and Andrew Garfield, the man of the hour right now, in the lead role. The stellar opening weekend and the incredible reviews the third Tom Holland Spider-Man got were just enough to put everything in motion, which also led us to what we are here today, and we quote, bring the Amazing Spider-Man 3 movie back on track. Fans went spiraling when both of the actors, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, returned in Spider-Man No Way Home, but now as part of the MCU. Fans are calling out the canceled sequel to happen, with so many wanting to see Andrew Garfield back as Spider-Man in his own rights. The entire debate does not end there. Even before Tom Holland was cast as Spider-Man for the MCU, Sony had developed plans for The Amazing Spider-Man 3 and a Sinister Six movie, with the second movie cutting a scene with Shailene Woodley as Mary Jane, a plot point that would eventually go on to explore in the third movie. We all know that Andrew Garfield's movies were not well received when compared to Tobey Maguire's or Tom Holland's, but the current popularity might prove to be the best thing that could happen for Garfield's Spidey, giving him the perfect send-off for his trilogy. The thing which makes sense why the fans are calling for yet another movie. Sony and Marvel Studios have already announced another trilogy for Peter Parker, but unfortunately, this doesn't mean that Tobey and Andrew will be coming back, because as it seems the new trilogy has an entirely different approach to where the movies would go, and that is bringing a whole new set of characters to the scene in the likes of Venom, Morbius, and last but not least, Kraven the Hunter. We should also mention that Miles Morales could be joining this new trilogy of Spider-Man as yet another Spider-Man who is most certainly going to be part of the MCU. All in all, as it stands right now, it seems like the new deal between Disney and Sony is going to go in a different direction, focusing on new generations of Spider-Man rather than going backward. And it's understandable. However, this doesn't mean that we should not get the Amazing Spider-Man 3 movie, right?
How can I do this? What does this make me?
I don't know. What does that make you?
It makes me not able to live with myself.
The Amazing Spider-Man 3. As the dust settles, all that is left for us is to hope that the third sequel of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man will finally happen, especially now since we have the entire multiverse in our hands, and the little but important backstory we got about the character in the third MCU Spider-Man movie, about him not being who he was, and not holding any more punches as of late, which is a good indication as to where the third movie might take us, the aftermath of Peter Parker's mourning days of Gwen Stacy, whom he thought he could save when the time came. There are a lot of points of interest for the fans to dissect, but the one unifying request that tops everything else is the wanting for the third movie. A good, refreshing memory were the appearances of both previous Spider-Mans who showed up out of nowhere and were able to work together with Tom Holland's Spider-Man to defeat the greater evil, or save them, we're not quite sure. The Amazing Spider-Man 3 was at one time in the works, but was shelved after the little success the previous 2 movies from the supposed trilogy had. However, the renewed interest might be what brings the dusted scripts back in play, with fans already having quite a handful of plans as to where the movie should go, with Andrew's movie having a little bit of a darker tone than the previous 2, the villains from the previous movies now back, but with the knowledge of the multiverse existing, and maybe even some new characters introduced in the movie, who could all possibly become part of the MCU at some point.
England? Really?
Marvel's plan. One of the interesting things that recently surfaced to the light was Marvel's plan about Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, which, to put in short, was to make him canon to the MCU, a plan that came very close to happening. The reboot, the Amazing Spider-Man franchise, came around the same time as Phase 1 of the MCU, in which 5 Marvel solo outings took place, which would all go on to collapse in one big crossover film, The Avengers. There was one Easter egg that didn't make the cut in the movie, and in it was Garfield's Spider-Man, which would have introduced him as part of the MCU. If the Easter egg remained in the movie, there would have been probably more details in the MCU and the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie, which would eventually reinforce the connection between the two. This would have changed many things in Phase 3 of the MCU, with Sony and Marvel maybe working out a deal to share Spider-Man, which would also serve as a downfall of Tom Holland's Spider-Man and him never existing. At that time, a third Amazing Spider-Man movie could have also included cameos of MCU characters, with Andrew appearing in the Infinity Saga as a very good conclusion to his character. When everything is taken into consideration, and all the time between now and then, we can safely say that all 3 modern live-action iterations of Spider-Man have been crowd-pleasing and successful in their way, with Tobey and Andrew's take on the web-slinger being versions more accurate to the comics, as one of the biggest complaints about Tom Holland's Spider-Man being very reliant on Tony Stark and other MCU crossovers, and the previous 2 being more self-sufficient heroes who establish their identities without everything around them happening with some connection to them, which some viewers would have preferred even to this day. So if Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man Oscorp Tower Easter egg made their way into the Avengers, we would have been seeing a whole different on the friendly neighborhood superhero, one that would have made the Amazing Spider-Man franchise a canonical part of the MCU, with the franchise marked entirely different. The ending of Spider-Man No Way Home was a whole lot confusing, from all the cures being made for the villains of all worlds and them continuing to go on with their lives, all the way to the 3 versions of Spider-Man working together for the first time. But one detail we think will be remembered for so long is Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man's meaningful redemptive moment he had when he saved MJ, making up for the fact he couldn't save Gwen in his world.
The entire world seems to be asking the same question. Where is Spider-Man?
On a related note, tell us down in the comments below what are your thoughts on a third Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie? And if it was up to you, share with us your take on the movie, what it would look like to you, and which direction would you like the movie to take. But also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.